I'm not an expert on this program yet, and maybe I never will be, but I've learned enough of it to see to make it. Hey everyone, welcome back. And today's going to be a fun episode because today's the day we actually get our hands dirty and install some software on our computer. In particular, we're going to be installing the Z80 Spin Emulator, which is actually a combination emulator, assembler, and debugger. So it's an all-in-one package, and it's a package that I think is a perfect place for us to start on our programming journey. And I've used it a bit. I've installed it already, and I've been using it to prepare some of the demos that I've been using on this channel. And so far, I'm really happy with it. It's super easy to install, very intuitive to use. It seems to work really well, and I think it's a perfect tool for beginners for sure to start off in programming in Z80 Assembly Language and even basic and machine code, which we'll be doing all three of those to at least some degree. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you how I install it on my computer, which, by the way, is an old Windows laptop. It's probably at least 10 years old, so you certainly don't need the latest and fastest hardware in order to run this software. And if you want to follow along with me, I'll show you how I install it so that you'll be prepared at home to follow along with me in the exercises that I'm doing here to show how we can learn some programming and begin to develop some games for the ZX Spectrum Next personal computer. So if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find someplace we can download this program. So I'm just going to type it into Google and see if I can find someplace here. So I'll enter ZX Spin download, and it comes up with several results. I'm just going to try this top one here. It's www.zofar.net Sinclair ZX Spin. I have no idea what this website is, so I'm not promoting it. I'm not affiliated with it in any way, so I'm not guaranteeing that this is free from viruses or anything else, but I'm just going to try it on my own computer. And you're welcome to download this program from whatever link you feel comfortable with. So I'm just going to click on it here and see where it takes me. Okay, so it's brought me to this site here, and it looks like here it's showing ZX Spin, Sinclair ZX Spectrum QL Series Emulator on the Windows platform. Okay, and down here it says the name is V0.7, so it's version 0.7 of the ZX Spin emulator. And I'm just going to click this download link I see here, download it onto the desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder for it called ZX Spin. Right there. And so now I'm going to click Save, and it should save that file into my ZX Spin folder. So it looks like it downloaded it down here. I'm just going to click this and say Show in Folder. And yep, there it is. It's under my ZX Spin folder. It's downloaded a zipped file. So you'll need obviously some program to unzip a zipped file if you download this program in a zipped version. So I'm going to double click on this, and it's opened a bunch of programs here, and there's two here called ZX Spin. So I'm going to try double clicking on this one that's got a little square thing next to it. And if I double click on that, it asks me if I want to extract all the programs that may be needed to run this ZX Spin file. So I'll click Extract All, and now it's asking me where to extract them. I'm just going to leave it at the default value that shows up here. And I click Extract. And there it's extracting the program. I don't really need to see all those graphical details. And there it's done. Okay, so now the ZX Spin file here shows up with a little picture next to it. And I'm going to use this one to open it. And that's all you need to do. So now it's downloaded and installed on my computer. And if you wanted to, you could drag this program down to your taskbar, or you could put it on your desktop or wherever you want to have your shortcut. So I'm just going to open it from right here within the folder. And so I'll double click here on this ZXspin file. And there we go. We have our little tiny emulator here. And I think I can close this window because I don't need that anymore. And I don't need that anymore. So there, I'm back to my Google homepage, which I don't really need that anymore either. So there. Now I'm back onto my desktop, and my ZXspin emulator is now open in this tiny window. So I want to make it a little bigger. And if I click on View here, yep, there's a window size, and I'm at 100% window size right now. So let's increase that to 200% window size and drag it a bit so we can see the whole thing. And that looks like a good, comfortable size for me to use. All right, so there we go. We have our ZXspin emulator installed. And if we wanted to use it just as a normal computer, we could do that right now. We can start typing here on our regular computer keyboard, and I could type 10 print, and remember to get the characters on a normal keyboard that you would get on a Spectrum keyboard, you have to figure out actually how to produce those characters so they're not going to be in the same place as a normal computer keyboard. So for example, I need to generate a quotation mark here, which normally I would do by just pressing Shift quotation mark, but in this case I need to press Control P because that's where the quotation mark is on a normal Spectrum keyboard. And then I'll type hello, and then Control P again to get my second quote, enter, 20, G for go to, and then 10. So if you're familiar with BASIC, which I'm sure most if not all of you probably are, this is a BASIC program which is going to print hello on the screen, and I'll press R to run it, press enter, and there we go. It's filling the screen with our hello, and I'll press N for no, because it's asking me if I want to scroll the screen to get some more hellos on the screen, so I'll press N, and that breaks into the program, and I press enter again, and I'm back into my listing. Now, this is not intended to be an instructional video on programming in BASIC or any other programming language, but we're just going to take a brief tour of this ZXspin environment so we can have an idea of what it can do for us. So here we have our emulator, and we're ready to either type programs in BASIC here, or even generate some machine code programs, which we are going to do in a very soon upcoming video. And let's see what else we can do with this. So here we've already generated a basic program and run it within the emulator. And we've used the View menu command to change the window size. And if we go over here to Tools, there's an Options menu we can choose. And you can see there's lots of different options on this menu. Under File section here we can load a file, load a snapshot, save a snapshot. And what's the difference between file and snapshot, you say? Well, that's a good question, and to be honest, I don't know the answer completely, but I believe it has to do with the fact that a snapshot doesn't just refer to a program that we're typing in, but a snapshot, I believe, also saves data that we've stored in memory. So when you're creating a program and you save your program, that just saves basically what you've typed in as a program. But if you have other data that's been stored into memory somehow, a snapshot will save that also. And it might even save other stuff, but I think that's one thing that it does, is save the data that's in memory along with your program. And then down here you see we have binary files that we can load and save. That's for when we're creating our machine code programs. Then this is the data that is our actual machine code programs, and it will save the data for us just as kind of like a memory dump. Instead of an actual program that we're typing and saving and loading, this will save memory data if I'm not mistaken. But I'm sure I'll learn more about that further on in my journey. And let's see what else we can take a look at here. So if we go over to, well, here's an interesting one, emulation. If we go down the emulations tab, well, one thing we can do is do a hard reset up here. So let's click on that right now. And that has reset our emulator. So we're back with a fresh screen and my basic program is gone. And let's see what else we have under here. So we also have, a soft reset, which we can do as well. So a soft reset would reset the computer in comparison to a hard reset, which is like turning the power off on the computer, physically turning off the power. So another thing that's interesting under here is CPU speed. You can see this emulator allows us to choose what speed we want the processor to run at. And the processor is the same as CPU, in case that's not familiar to you. So right now the processor, or the CPU, is running at its default speed of 3.54 megahertz. But you can see we also have many other options here we can choose if we want to speed up our program and see it running at a faster speed. So I'm just going to leave this running at the 3.54 megahertz speed. But for example, you may like to try selecting the faster speed to see what it might look like running your program on a computer such as the ZX Spectrum Next, which is able to actually run at these higher speeds. But I'm going to leave mine at the default 3.54 megahertz for now. And there's one other thing we can look at here, which is under the Tools menu up here, we have an Options selection, which brings us to this window, which we have a whole bunch of different options we can select. But there's only one of them that I'm interested in for now, which is the Hardware option, which allows us to choose, among other things, the spectrum model that we want this emulator to emulate. So right now it's emulating a 48K plus spectrum, and I actually don't know the difference between all these different spectrum models and Amstrad models and clones and so forth. And even the spectrum models, I don't know what the difference is between the 128K or the 48K plus or the 48K or the 16K just has less memory, that's obvious. But the 48K and the 48K plus, there must be some difference between them, which I'm not aware of. I think for now I'm just going to choose 48K and see how that goes. And I'll click OK down here. And there are other selections you can choose as well if you wanted to take a look at them. I'm not changing any of the other selections for now until I maybe need to at some point in the future. But for now I'm just going to choose the hardware selection and choose 48K. And if I decide to change this in a later video when I'm doing a particular programming exercise, then I'll let you know about that. So for now we'll choose 48K and I'll click OK. And there we're in the 48K mode. So there we go. Now we have our emulator all set to go. Now, one other very important tool that is available to us in this package is the Z80 Assembler, which is here under the Tools menu. Way down at the bottom it says Z80 Assembler. And there you go. If you click on that, it brings up a Z80 Assembler window where we can type in our assembly language programs. And then when we execute them, we can see them run immediately over here in the emulator window. Isn't that going to be handy for us? And one more thing that's available to us is the debugger right here. So if we click on this, then it brings up this awesome debugger that we can use, which looks very impressive and complicated right now, but it's, and I'm sure it is, but it's going to be super useful to us to be able to debug our programs right within this environment. So here you see how useful this package is going to be to us. We have an emulator, a Z80 assembler, and a debugger all in one. Now, this package doesn't emulate a ZX Spectrum Next computer because the ZX Spectrum Next is an enhanced version of a Sinclair Spectrum computer. So this emulates the actual Sinclair Spectrum computers, as we just saw looking at the different versions of Spectrums that it emulates. So we wouldn't expect it to be able to emulate all the features of the ZX Spectrum Next personal computer, but it'll certainly be good enough for us to start learning our programming on at the beginning of our journey. So there we go. We have, in just a few minutes, our development environment set up, and it's a full-featured development environment containing both an emulator and an assembler and a debugger. Cool. Now we're ready to start our programming. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you actually. You know when you're writing a letter and you forget to tell the person something and you put a PS at the end of it? Well, that's what we have here. We have a PS to my video because I forgot to show you something that is really cool and I think useful. So in case some of you are really eager and start playing around with this emulator but get frustrated by the fact that the keyboard is different from a Sinclair Spectrum keyboard and you can't figure out where all the different symbols and everything are and the keywords, there are some useful tools in here that can help us. So I just want to show you them before we go. So if we go to Tools, and I've closed the You can see I've closed the assembler window and the debugger window, because if you leave the debugger window open, then it doesn't let you go back to use this emulator window right away, I believe. So you might want to close the other windows except for this emulator window for now. And if you go under here and click on 48K keyboard helper. Oh, so maybe it's good that we chose the 48K emulation mode after all. Here, if you click on that, it pops up this little mini keyboard for us, which I'm just going to put over here. And you can click on these little keys here with your mouse cursor. And let's say I want to enter a basic program. I can type 10, print, and then here there's a symbol shift button you can click to get these little red marks. So if I want the quotation mark here, which is red, I click on the symbol shift. And now it's hard to see, but it's pressed down. It's showing as it's pressed down now. And then if I click on P, it should give me the quotation mark, I hope. Let's see. Yep, good. The symbol shift is still pressed down now, so let's unclick that, or click it again to make it pop up, although it's kind of hard to see. And now we can use this keyboard to type just as we would type normally. So I'll say print hi, and then I'll symbol shift this P again to get my second quote. And I'll press enter, and then 20. Oh, it's giving me a funny character here because my symbol shift is still pressed down. You can see the 2 key has this little ampersand, what do you call this? An @ sign in red. It's very small, but that's why it's giving me the @ sign, because my symbol shift key still is pressed here. So I'll unclick that, and I can press, is there a delete? Here's delete. How do we get this delete here? Caps shift? Nope, it gives me a 0. Symbol shift and caps shift? Nope. How do I get this delete here? Oh, well, I can't figure out how to get the delete key working on that little mini keyboard on the screen, but the delete key on my regular keyboard right in front of me works, so I'm just going to use that. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you this is not so that we can use this little tiny miniature keyboard with our mouse cursor, because that would be a pain to try and type in programs that way. But what I do want to show you is this tab over here, the Quick Basic tab. So if you click on that, it brings you up a window where you can actually type in the commands and the normal characters that you have on your regular computer keyboard. So here there's some settings you can select. I'm just going to leave mine at the default settings, which is send enter key at end, and 48K basic tokens, and parse for errors. So if I click in here, I can actually type in character by character my program. So if I type in 10, print, and once I've typed the complete keyword, if it finds it, it brings it up for me and capitalizes it to show me that it's actually recognized the keyword that I've typed in. And now if I want to type a quotation mark, all I have to do is press Shift quotation. Oh, and it brings me this funny character. Okay, well, this is something that might be interesting for some of you to know as well. I found that if I get this funny character here when I'm trying to type some keys, I need to go down here. Let me just expand my window so you can see. And I've just changed the view here so you can see the bottom of my screen, where I need to go down here to where it says English Canada, because I'm in Canada. So I'm going to click on this, and instead of choosing the English Canada, I'm going to click the English US keyboard. And now it says English US down here, and now I'll go back to my full screen. Okay, so I'm back in my full screen mode here, and I can try typing that in again. If I type in 10, print, and then I press Shift quotation mark. There I get my actual quotation mark that I'm looking for instead of that funny character. And I can say hello there, and Shift quotation mark again to get my second quote. And I press enter, and it shows up on my emulator screen. And we can say 20, print, how are you? End quote. And then we could say 100, go to, and you see when I finish typing go to, it finds that statement as an actual keyword, and it capitalizes it and separates it for me here into 2 words. So I know that it's found that keyword as a legitimate keyword. It does some error checking for me, which I guess is what this parse for errors selection down here does. So it checks the commands that I'm typing as I enter them. So I'll say 100 go to 10. Enter. Then I can type run, enter, and it runs my program. Hello there, how are you? And if I press N now on my keyboard in this keyboard helper window and press enter, it breaks into the program. So I find it much easier and faster to type into this 48-key keyboard helper by actually typing the entire keywords, even though we can't use this to automatically generate the keywords by pressing one keystroke anymore, as you can on a normal Spectrum keyboard. I still find it a lot easier and faster to type out the entire keywords rather than having to remember where all the different symbols and keywords are located on a normal Spectrum keyboard. Although if you wanted to, you could use this on-screen keyboard just as a kind of a reference to see where all the different characters and keywords and commands are, and then type them in manually on your keyboard if you want. But I prefer to just use this quick basic keyboard helper and enter the commands by typing them in completely. So hopefully this little tip will be useful for some of you as well. So there we go. In just a few minutes we were able to set up our development environment and get it installed. And now we're all ready to start entering some programs, either in Z80 Assembly Language or Basic, or even machine code, which I think we'll be doing in our next episode, maybe. Will we? We'll see. Maybe we will. And if you had any difficulty installing any of these, well, it's only one package to install and it was pretty simple. So hopefully you were able to install it successfully as well, and you're all ready to follow along with me as I start programming some techniques that we're going to be using for developing games for the ZX Spectrum Next computers, or the Sinclair Spectrum computers, if that's what you're interested in programming for. It's up to you. And we'll just keep moving forward and see how far we can go. Thanks again for watching, and as always, if anyone would like to help support me on this channel by donating to my Patreon account, you can head over to patreon.com/spriteworks and choose a subscription level that might be comfortable for you there, and check out the different rewards that I've set up for people who choose to donate. And I thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.